Welcome back to another weekly edit. This week I'm back in a Lightroom Classic after a while. If you recall, or if you've been watching any of my weekly edits, you'll know that my very first weekly edit was actually done in Lightroom Classic. Now, like most photographers today, I'm probably the most familiar excuse me, with Lightroom Classic, which is one of the reasons why I started the weekly edits, also because I always like to explore other editing programs. I'm always curious about them. I do it in my free time. So one of the big drivers behind this series is actually doing these edits in other programs and showing you guys how I learn along the way. But anyway, so this week back in Lightroom Classic for the weekly edit, and I'm actually not doing a landscape or an adventure image, I'm doing an architectural image. Now, what a lot of people, well, most people don't know is that I've actually done a lot of architectural imagery back in the day, and it's not as complicated as you think. I think a lot of architectural photographers, especially granted on the fine art end or on sort of the really high end, you do need some very specialist equipment. But if you're doing more sort of architectural imagery for local architectural firms, for houses that they want to put in their portfolio, it's more about getting the job done. And this particular image was actually done on an APS-C size sensor camera, the Nikon D5600, with just your average Sigma 10 to 20 millimeter lens. So that's a full frame equivalent of 15 to 30 mil. Now, as you'll see shortly, as I'll explain as well, but while I've got you here sort of face to face, looking in my eyes, one of the main things with sort of a Euro image for an architectural shoot, the image that they want to put on the front page or above the fold on a website, etc., is typically that twilight image where the light is coming through the windows. You're photographing sort of the best vantage point or the best aspect of the house, and it's that the light is getting low, so you still have some ambient light, but you also have that light from the inside of the house glowing through. And I did most of those images just with natural light, sort of just waiting for the right time until the outside light balanced well with the interior light. Sorry, I apologize if my throat's my voice is a bit weird. I don't know what's something in my throat. So let's jump into Lightroom. I'll show you guys how I edit the image from raw to finish, and let me know what you guys think down in the comments. La la la. This thing in my voice, in my throat, sorry. Okay, so I'm here in Lightroom Classic. As you can see, I've got the image filtered out. I'm just going to press D to head into the develop module, if it will let me. There we go. Okay, get that info squared away. So this is the raw image. Now, as with every weekly edit, being an architectural image, you generally, obviously, you want to present the house in the best way possible, while staying true to facts, because it's an architectural image. But you also want to make the architects feel good about their work, and you also want to feel the house owner, if there is an owner already, think, wow, I'm staying in a really cool house. I didn't realize it actually looks as good. So you want to deliver good work, but you also want to stay true to what actually is there in reality, which makes balancing out the ambient and the artificial light so crucial. But coming back to my point, actually, so the vision for this edit is to bring those aspects out, and that's hopefully what I'm going to do. Okay, so in Lightroom Classic, we've got this convenient, in the develop module, we've got this convenient panel going down the right hand side. So I'll work from top to bottom, maybe jumping around a little bit, but not too much. So as you can see here, the camera was pointed up a little bit on a tripod, so the aspect ratio, not the aspect ratio, sorry, the vertical lines is something that we need to address. So before I make any edits, I'm just going to head down to, well, where did it go? Transform. So getting confused with all the programs I've been using the last while. So to transform, I'm going to hit constraint and crop. And in Lightroom, generally when I hit auto, it does quite a good job. So let's do that. I'm going to hit auto. So straight off the bat, that's actually pretty decent. However, what I find, it's a little bit, even though these vertical lines here are straight, it's a little bit strong. It looks not quite as natural. I mean, if you're looking up at a building, the lines at least on the extreme, generally are tilted a little bit. So I'm going to click into vertical here. I'm going to press the up arrow just to tilt the house back just ever so slightly, just that these extreme outside vertical lines are maybe 1 or 2 degrees off or vertical, and click out. And that is looking pretty good. I might head into rotate here and just rotate the house around a tad. Perfect. So now vertical lines fixed. Leading on from that, I'm going to head into lens correction quickly, remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections, and you can see the difference that makes. So before, after. Now that not only adds some overall brightness, it also actually takes care of the lens vignetting, and we are ready to start our edit. Now, because I waited for the perfect moment to capture the image, you know, with the ambient light, so the natural light outside sort of at dusk, balanced with the interior light coming through. There's not a lot of exposure balancing we actually need to do here, you know, which is actually quite a sort of a pro tip, if you like. You know, when you are making images, if you are patient, or if you know your equipment and the subject matter to the extent where you can actually wait for the correct moment, rather than to try and fix things in post or to balance it out with a ton of artificial lighting and stuff, you make your life a lot easier. Okay, so all I want to do here, I'm going to raise the exposure slightly. So I'm using my arrow keys here. I find sort of I work quite well. So I just hover my mouse over the relevant setting, and I just use my arrow keys if I don't need to make big adjustments, rather than pulling sliders back and forth. So sort of about there. Highlights, I'm going to pull down pretty much all the way. I'm more concerned about looking at the interior lighting here. So yeah, maybe to about 80. And shadows I'm going to pull up, not too much, maybe about there. Whites, I'm going to hold in Option on a Mac, and then drag the whites to the right. Just look what that does. So there we go. There, the lights are starting to blow out. So I'm going to leave that there. And then with blacks, I'm going to do the same. Hold Alt or Option and pull to the left, and then we can see the blacks just starting to clip. So now I've set my black and white point. So I'm just going to hit the backslash key quickly to look at it before after. So that's before, that's after. And texture, I'm not concerned about. Clarity with architectural imagery, because of the small details inside the buildings and the walls and the paint, etc. I generally add about 10 or 15, so I'm just going to bump that up. Vibrance, I'm also just going to add about 10. Then I'm quickly going to zoom into 100%. Now this is the original raw file. It's not been processed with Lightroom's new no noise or denoise algorithm, so there is a bit of noise in the shadows here. Again, you know, if you're pixel peeping, it might be a problem, but maybe I'll quickly, so let me just explain that quickly. So again, depending on where this image is going to be used, I would treat it accordingly. With this particular image or this shoot, I knew it was going to end up mostly online or in a magazine as a single page or even a double page spread. The noise in this image, we haven't even treated it yet, and it's going to be perfectly fine. For architects, the main thing is to see that the house, it's properly built, in no cracks in the walls and things. Noise in a digital image is not something that they're generally concerned about. Okay, so looking at this is obviously a dusk image. It is a little bit cooler, you know, being at twilight. I do maybe, let's use auto white balance. It's probably going to completely warm it up too much. There we go. Yeah. So I'm gonna warm it up ever so slightly. It's about sort of daylight level there, 5500 Kelvin. But overall, I think the white balance in camera has done a pretty good job. Tone curve wise, I want to add just a little bit of contrast. So I'm just going to manually add a very slight S curve here, not too much on the highlight end. Actually move the shadow point up a little bit, and then raise a black point and then pull that down there. And then let's look at a before, after, before, after. Pretty good, not bad. And then in the color mixer, so point color, I mean, it's a very new feature in Lightroom last couple of months. My workflow wise, I'm not that concerned about it. I'm going to stick to the old school method here in the HSL panel. Now, what you'll find often if you're doing architectural images sort of at this dusk twilight time of day, the interior lights are generally very, very warm, yellowy orange. And even though you get them balanced brightness wise, they're going to be overly orange compared to the outside. So I like to desaturate it, and let me show you how I do that. So what I'll do is I'll to the saturation section here, I'll click on this little circle, and then I'll just come to a part here that I find a little bit too orange or yellow. I'll click on that and I'll drag down, and you'll see on the right hand side the corresponding values start to head into the minus areas, and the particular area becomes less orangey. So I'll just click out of that, and if we have a look, so I have a look over here, I'm just going to deactivate it. So that's before, after, before, after. So it just brings us into a little bit more of a believable level in terms of orange, yellow, etc. Other than that, nothing else I want to do here. Color grading, I generally stay away from unless, you know, the color balance is really, really off. What I might do here is just actually have a look quickly in the shadows. So let's just click in the shadows. Just add excuse me, add a little bit of warmth, ever so slightly, like tiny bit. Before, after, very slight change. I don't know if you can see that on screen, but overall this is a more you know, cooler toned image naturally. So I want to leave it like that. So when we get to detail, I'm just going to zoom into 100%. Now I'm going to first do the noise part. So the old school way, not via denoise. So luminance wise, so we're going to have a look here in the shadows and on the garage door here. I'm going to pull the noise up. Yeah, let's just pull it up. So I'm going to pull it up to about 30. And you can see that, let's just look at it before, after. And that does a good enough job, decent, no problems there. If you pull up the contrast slider, it brings back a little bit of that noise, but I'm not too fussed about that. So noise wise, I'm happy. Now sharpening wise, what I like to do is use a low radius, 0.5, take the detail down to about 10, and then use a high amount. So I'm gonna bump the amount up to about 100. And if we have a look at a before, that's with noise, that's with noise without sharpening, and that is with sharpening and noise reduction. And then I'm just going to mask that out. So holding Option or Alt, dragging the masking to the right, so that it leaves the sky alone there, and just grabs onto those little edges there. Perfect, looking good, pretty noise free. Sharp enough. Lens corrections we've done. Transform we've done. Lens blur is not something we're concerned about for this image. Effects, not really. Add some grain. No, that's more for landscapes. I've never really done that with architectural images, but just thought I'd have a quick look. Oh, sorry about that. Then calibration, I generally stay away from as well. I mean, we can pull the blue up. I mean, it'll definitely have a nice effect on the sky actually. So let's just do to about 15, 25 maybe, and look at it before, after. So it's just bringing some nice blue aspects to the sky and a little bit of color contrast to the windows and the roof. The roof section here. Yeah. So in terms of global adjustments, that's pretty much that. I'm going to do one or two quick local adjustments before we head into the black and white edit. So having a look quickly just on the edges here, I do want to add a slight crop. So I'm going to press R, and then just on the right hand side here, just bring that in ever so slightly to get rid of the edge of that plant there, and at the top just bring that down slightly as well. Perfect. Now in terms of local edits, I'm going to click on the masking section here, and again, I'm quite old school here. I have a lot of AI options, but I find between the linear gradient and the radial gradient, I get most of my stuff done. So I'm going to click on the radial gradient here, and I'm going to just drag it out like that, and then I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to sort of try and spread it out here over these plants here, leading into the entrance of the house. Currently it's at 50% feather, should be fine actually. And then instead of using exposure, I'm actually going to use the tone curve to add a more evened out brightening effect on this plant. So I'm just going to drag that up, just like that. And then lastly, I'm just going to use a bit of shadows, just for that subtle brightening effect, because it was a little bit dark. So let's just have a look at it before. Where are we there? Oh, what am I doing wrong? Before, after, before, after. It's a subtle effect, but makes a difference overall. Then I'm going to come into the mask here. I'm going to say duplicate mask 1. Then I'm going to take the copy and I'm going to actually drag it out over the other plants here. So I'm going to press O just to visualize the mask. Just drag it out like that, narrow it down slightly. And let's just have a quick look before, after. Perfect. So I think that's pretty much that. With Lightroom's new cloning, healing, generative, full options, we can take care of a lot of this little, what would you call this? It's not defect or just things that sort of draw the eye in Lightroom instead of heading into Photoshop. So let's just select those, generative AI, object aware. I'm going to paint over that one there. And I'm going to click apply. It's going to think for a few seconds. And that is gone. And we can carry on to the whole image here. Let's just see what that does. Now, while it's thinking there actually, so I mean we can go through the whole image here and just take care of those little details to make that image more pleasing for portfolio use for architects. Again, staying true to what there is. Obviously, I mean those things are going to be there when people arrive in real life, so we don't want to take away of it too much. Okay, so let's leave it at that, just to time-wise. So if we have a quick look at where we started, which was there, and this is where we are. So pretty decent, and because we did most of the work on site making the image, and the editing as a result was fairly simple. So that's the color edit. If that's all that you're interested in, thanks very much for joining me. I'm going to do a black and white edit just because it's customary for the weekly edit, but if it was for for architectural purposes, unless they requested a black and white edit, I generally wouldn't necessarily do it because it's not that relevant, unless you're doing sort of fine art architecture, which this is definitely not. But let's do it just for old time's sake. So I'm going to hit G, and then I am going to right click and say create virtual copy. And is it going to apply those edits? I'm assuming. So if we do, it should have the edits applied. There we go. And then I have, let's just see what it says there. Copy to, okay, so it took that one there. Okay, so we have our wait, where'd you go? There we go. We have our finished color edit here. Now, with something like this, I would actually, to save myself time, and because I want to experiment a little bit, instead of doing the desaturate via the color mixer, desaturating each individual color channel, which I actually have a preset for somewhere here, color desaturate, there we go. I'm actually gonna instead head into the color profiles here by clicking on these 4 little squares and go to black and white, here we go, and select one of these and tweak them further. So just having a look on the thumbnails, have a look at that one. That looks quite interesting actually. Black and white 7. I like the one where the sky is quite dark, although this black and white 9 might probably be the most realistic representation. But let's go for this one, black and white 7. It's quite a nice black and white 6. Let's do black and white 6. Now it is a bit strong, so I'm just going to dial it back ever so slightly to about 68. Click close. And then generally what I like to do is head into the tone curve and really bump up that contrast. So I'm actually just going to select strong contrast. There we go. And into the basics panel. So because we did use a profile, saturation is not available. Okay, fair enough. I'm going to bump up, so I'm going to press J to see the white and black points, and I'm going to bump up the whites. I'm not going to be concerned about these lights here. I'm just going to bump the whites up a little bit, just sort of to there. So the nice thing is actually, because I bump up the whites to about quite a significant level there, and the blacks as well to about there. So these are small portions of the image where the whites are now blown out. So a quick way to fix that is to actually add new radial gradients. You just draw that out over there, like that, and then you can enable the clipping indicators again. And why is it not showing? Let's just close that. Okay, so now it's showing, but when I enable the mask, then it's not. Okay, interesting. But anyway, so what you could do here then is just actually bring down the whites. Oh, there we go. So bring that down. So now it's back in range. And then you can just duplicate the mask and then just take that to each individual point. So duplicate mask, copy to there we go. So now all the whites are back in range. And black and white wise, that's looking pretty good. Might actually bump up just the overall contrast a tad. There we go. Yeah, simple stuff. Okay, well, thanks for joining me for this weekly edit. Quite a significantly quicker one this week, I see, unless I carry on talking for the next 10 minutes or so, which I hope not to do. But yeah, that just shows you the difference being so sort of innately familiar with an editing program. And also, to Adobe's credit, I mean, Lightroom Classic, editing in it is it's intuitive, and if you know it well, it's very quick and easy in a sense. That said, other programs that I've used, like DxO Photolab, Darktable especially as well, steep learning curves, but the way that their programs interpret the raw data is just, for me, on another level. If I could have that sort of level of raw interpretation coupled with Lightroom's editing workflow, that would for me be sort of the ideal world in terms of editing. Yeah. So hope you've enjoyed that, and it was nice having you along, and I will see you in the next one.